Ow. What's up, everyone? Punchy back with Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 2, Higurashi. Possible finale? We're about to dig into this. Rena's just called out Mion on. She knows what happened, essentially. Mion confirmed to us she's panicking because she knows the police are surrounding, and that we know that Rena detected so damn much. Like, straight up, like Detective Holmes. I'll be the Watson who bounces off the stupid ideas off her, and it looks like she's resigned herself to it. So, at last, Mion had been sitting there lazily, readjusting her cushion, and sat herself upright. At that moment, the atmosphere in the room changed completely, and we are backing up. You know the drill. Mion's expression also changed. Oh, there goes the shine in her eyes. The impatience and wonderment in her expression disappeared, and she became so solemn. You would think she was about to conduct a tea ceremony. I could sense it. It was now, in this moment. Mion had ceased to be Mion, but changed to Mion Sonozaki, the current heir of the Sonozaki house. The solemn atmosphere about her was clearly abnormal, and was entirely different from that of the Mion I knew. Now, I could believe it. Now I could believe that she was the young leader of who commanded the entire Sonozaki clan. Mion quietly placed her hands on the tatami mat, and gave a beautiful, elegant bow, as if this were really a tea ceremony, and named herself. We meet for the first time. I am the current heir to the Sonozaki house. My name is Mion. Mion's movements were so elegant they could cut, and we couldn't even answer her. All Ren and I could do was watch, baffled at her actions, which we could never imagine the normal her doing. I would like to welcome you to the Sonozaki main house today. I will greet you all in place of our leader, Oyu. It seems as though you have various things you would like to ask. If I can be of any assistance, I would like to answer, without concealing anything. What? What did Mion just say? Mion said that she would answer anything we asked. There was a strong light of resolve in her eyes. It's really alright if we ask anything then? Shall I tell you everything I know? Oh, I shall tell you everything I know. That is why you have come here after all. Ren and I exchanged glances. There was a mountain of things he wanted to ask Mion. However, we hesitated for a moment on what we should ask first. The first question Rena gave was extremely abstract, but it was the question everyone wanted to know right now. I want to know about this indie gala. Why would you do this? That was what I wanted to ask as well. Why would you do this? That didn't only go for Rika-chan and Satoko. It went for the mayor, Takano-san, and Tomitake-san as well. No, even further back, for all the incidents that had been occurring every year. For a little while, Mion couldn't respond. Right when we realized that the question was too vague and tried to put it into more concrete terms, she finally opened her mouth to speak. Oh, backing up. Okay. To answer that question will take some time. If that is acceptable, however, then I would by all means like you to hear it. She spoke clearly. She spoke with the clarity that a grandmother might use when telling a story from a long time ago. Do you know that Hinamizawa village used to be called Onigafuchi village? Rena nodded lightly, then shot me a glance asking me if I did. And I returned her nod. Hinamizawa was once called Onigafuchi village. Yes. I heard all about it that night from Takano-san in the ritual storehouse. They firmly believed that demon blood ran through their veins and cut off all contact with the outside world. They were worshipped by those in the village at the foot of the mountains and treated like transcendents, those capable of magic. That's right. Our ancestors in Onigafuchi village were proud transcendents descended from the demons. Those in the villages at the foot of the mountains worshipped and honored them. Nevertheless, the L decayed with the end of the Tokugawa era. This is a weird backtrack. This is a weird music track. The black ships arrived. The era of the samurai ended. The era of national isolation ended. And the tradition of worshipping Onigafuchi village quickly disappeared. Those things that linger from the past were all to be detested. That was the kind of era it became. The Meiji era began, and the name of Onigafuchi village, with its long history, was forcibly changed to Hinamizawa village. I have heard the Meiji government strongly wished to erase the old customs, the abolition of feudal domains with the establishment of prefectures. An era had begun, seeing Japan sprinting up the stairs that were beyond their means to try and reach the same level of the rest of the world. All things in the Western style were to be extolled, while all old traditional things were to be scorned. That was the sort of era it was. Our ancestors in Onigafuchi village were proud transcendents, descended from the demons. Onigafuchi village disappeared in a flash. At last, Japan, provoked by the great European powers, colonizing countries in Asia one by one, began a policy to increase its wealth and military power so that it could stand as a global power in its own right. Conscription began, and they won war after war, the first Sino-Japanese War, then the Russo-Japanese War, until the Pacific War broke out. They recklessly climbed the staircase towards modernization. At the time, Onigafuchi village had already lost its impenetrability. The villagers, once worshipped as transcendents, were now on the receiving end of inhuman treatment. The sacred Onigafuchi village had been groundlessly labeled an isolated village of those afflicted with incurable diseases, a mere shadow of its former self, and stood on the precipice of an era of hardship. Thus began harsh days where one would suffer unreasonable discrimination just because people knew one was from Onigafuchi. The children in the village at the foot of the mountains were taught not to go near Hinamizawa because filthy germs were rampant there. Children who had come into contact with children from Hinamizawa would cry and wail as their parents purified the spot they were touched by rubbing salt on it. One of the adults said to the children that if you got lost in Hinamizawa, you would be kidnapped by demons, cut up into pieces, and devoured. Going by their old torture devices, wasn't that true though? Never ever go near the terrifying village of the man-eating demons. That's what he taught them. Another said that during a famine long ago, the people of Hinamizawa gathered up all the corpses they discarded into the dry riverbeds, and they cooked and ate them in order to survive. Groundless stories, but said in such seriousness. Baseless slander added to the baseless slander, making Onigafuchi village's historically accurate, thrilling history all the more believable. Perhaps the chain of undue discrimination was a manifestation of the people's anxiety towards the uncertain times. Of course, the story didn't end only with the perspective of children. If anyone found out you were from Onigafuchi, you would be turned down from any job you applied for. People would even go back on engagements and marriage proposals. As for the marriages where one partner had lied about it, as soon as truth got out, they were made to divorce. It even caused trials. They would appeal that where one came from wasn't an important enough reason for divorce. They would, however, lose their case. Lying about one's birthplace apparently constitutes a heavy act of misrepresentation in marriage. That's terrible. I heard about such discrimination towards those in small villages in civics class. Just because others knew you were from a tiny hamlet, you'd be subjected to every societal disadvantage there was, a modern form of bullying. Though I only memorized that because it was going to be on a test one time. I recall being suspicious about it and unable to believe such discrimination occurred in modern Japan. Well, I suppose I can't say that they weren't asking for it. Our ancestors were proud of the demon blood flowing through them. They lived their lives boasting about it, and scorning those at the foot of the mountain, after all. They struck fear into the villages down there with their mystique and demanding gifts of dread and tribute. With that, Mion smiled for the first time, albeit in self-mockery. During the Pacific War, despite the slogans that all the country was acting as one, those from Hinamizawa continued to suffer all manner of discrimination. There were too many ways to count. They would send their husbands and sons to war, and the women on the home front would suffer greatly too. My grandmother remembers it well. She remembers it being a difficult time. Even that bitterly long war, however, it finally ended in 1945. Hinamizawa had lost many male hands, but at last their fathers and husbands and sons returned to them. Of course, there were also many who didn't come back. Nevertheless, for those in Hinamizawa who were at their limits, barely able to maintain the village without their men, their return was a very happy thing. MacArthur's Ch.2 set to work on drastically improving mindsets and strove for the abolition of unfair discrimination. They could feel day breaking on the dismal night that was the previous era. Hinamizawa was on the verge of turning into a ghost town. Those in the village started to say that they should rebuild it once again and got to work, trying to make the village even a little more plentiful. During that time, someone appeared who built up a fortune, though, through a vast number of dealings in the black market. That was Mion's grandfather. I thought that— oh, I guess she's telling the story and Punchy is retelling it to us. That was Mion's grandfather, the husband of the elderly current family leader, Sohei Sonozaki. Sohei said that he managed food warehouses in Harbin after being dispatched to the Chinese mainland. When it was time to pull out, he conspired with his superiors and comrades and sold a great deal of the army's canned goods. He hid them somewhere in the Seto Inland Sea and sold them widely at a high price on the black market, thus earning a fortune. Seo didn't spend that fortune for his own pleasure either. He entrusted the entire amount to his wife, the head of the Sonozaki house. Let's revive this ruined village. All who live here and our family, and this fortune is our collective property. So he proclaimed to my grandmother, the current head of the family. That vast fortune was a huge reason why Hinamizawa was revitalized after the war. I see. With that, Hinamizawa came back to life, and that's how the Sonozaki family had established its current prosperity. Of course, there were many people who begrudged the money coming from the black market, but the villagers no longer minded it. They succeeded at one business venture after another. Those who had succeeded freely supported those who followed them. The giant family of Hinamizawa, tied together with strong bonds, kept on expanding its influence. The Sonozaki family, the center of everything, would be extolled for a long time as the minds behind Hinamizawa's revitalization. The person at the middle of it all was your Nana, Mii-chan. That's amazing. What a great success. Mion looked like she was honestly happy. Rena had praised her. However, around 1955, the wind started blowing in the other direction again because of the canned flesh incident. That's right, we completely forgot about that. Canned flesh? It sounded so hideous that just hearing it made me nauseous. Someone naming himself as my grandfather, Sohei Sonozaki's superior, confessed that those canned goods had been human flesh. Hinamizawa, a village in which demons lived and ate humans. They were just about to wipe away that cursed stigma. The light they had finally started to see in their peaceful lives grew hazy and disappeared. The shocking truth, as revealed by his former superior, the stolen provisions from the old Japanese army that had been a huge cornerstone for Hinamizawa's revival, had been canned human flesh. Why were there cans like that? Wasn't Sohei just the manager of a food warehouse? His superior revealed that Sohei Sonozaki did not have the job of managing food. Oh god. In reality, Sohei's job during the war had been to exterminate pestilent mice and to transport the corpses of those with infectious diseases. It had been unfair treatment, and all because of the lowliness of his origins. As a result, though, he had returned safely without having been sent to the front lines or being detained. Perhaps that was the only fortunate thing that happened to him. Finally, Sohei was enlisted as an assistant at a military medical institution. There, however, he found something even worse than the low, scorned, depressed customs of Onigafuchi village in the research they were carrying out. Could that have been, well, you know, the bacteriological corpse in the old Japanese army or whatever? Punchy-kun, you've heard about that? What could it be? I was pretty sure it was Unit 731. It was a nightmare unit that devoted itself to researching terrifying bacteriological weapons to break the deadlock in the war. They used many innocent people as fodder for horrible human experiments. They methodically observed how many days a new strain would take to kill the victims, how many days it would be when injected, how many days it would be when swallowed. They dissected many people to find that out. Sometimes they wouldn't bother waiting until they were dead and dissected them while they were still alive. They would strap them into centrifuges while still alive and crush them in decompression chambers while still alive. When an alive human decompresses, all the holes in their body get pushed outwards, and their intestines get pushed out of their anus like a snake winding out of it. Ugh! I have a feeling I saw something like that on a documentary one time. That makes me sick. And I still hate Hinamazawa, huh? You said it. Mion agreed with me, giving a faint, sad smile. It wasn't much in the way of communication, but for some reason, I was happy to have it right now. The unit Sohei was in did way kind of research than that. They were researching concrete methods for reducing the difficulty of delivering foods on the battlefield. The military's design at the start of the war completely fell apart, and a chronic food shortage broke out all over the battlefront. The food shortage led to malnutrition, and as their natural resistance is lowered, the soldiers fell to one disease after another. Spirit and morale lowered as well. They wouldn't be able to maintain their forces at this rate. Apparently, that's where the research started. At first, it was to find methods of delivering food to battlefields. It was very broad and included things like violent methods, like stealing it from citizens, to survive methods like how to cook unfamiliar insects and plant life. As they were working out the details, they kept straying off course and going out of control until they finally knocked down a door called Taboo. What do you think of the easiest source of protein on a battlefield is? I don't want to answer that. Rena and I knew the answer without being told, so we didn't answer. That's right. They were researching ways to handle using humans as food. Fighting onwards, sometimes eating the flesh of enemies and sometimes that of allies, became the ultimate service paid to their country. They were deathly serious about this doctrine. It really is a riot. My grandfather is despised as someone who ate human flesh, and yet they had gone above and beyond that. Apparently, he always thought about it too. Even if he was a vulgar man-eating demon, they were far more ugly demons than he. So no matter how much he was scorned, he wouldn't put up with it. At last, they had a handful of test prototypes. When the soldiers learned it was human flesh, however, the scientists couldn't make anyone eat it. It was apparently sent to the front lines. The cans were labeled as meat substitutes so that they wouldn't accidentally eat it themselves. They stamped the bottom with a circle. The starved soldiers on the front line apparently loved all the prototypes they were sent. Among them, those who cooked it in soy sauce, like it was sukiyaki, loved it the most. Come on, Michan, stop! I'm getting sick to my stomach. Rena really was pale-faced, and she looked like she was having difficulty continuing to sit on her knees. Mion looked like she had more to say, but sighed lightly and stopped there. Then, those canned goods your grandpa brought back. I don't know if it's true. Sohei denied it was human flesh up until the day he died. However, those who begrudged Hinamizawa's sudden revival called him a savage for making a fortune from selling human flesh, and the villagers began to be scorned again. They returned to a time where children will be jeered at and have rocks thrown at them. The stifling silence came back. What a seriously hopeless and sad story it was. They discriminated, were discriminated against, discriminated, and were discriminated against. Why must they attach worth and rank to it? Why can't they live life without looking down on people? Why can't everyone enjoy life together? Because that's not how it works, Punchy. I didn't know. My grandmother, the family head, once told the children of the village this. If they throw a stone at you, then two of you must throw stones back. The children asked her, what if they threw stones at 2 of us? Of course the answer was simple. If they throw stones at 2 of you, throw them back with 4. If they chase 8 of you with sticks, drive them off with 16. If they slander 30 of you, yell back with 60. Finally the children asked, what if we're attacked by 1,000 people? Even that answer was simple. If 1,000 people attack you, then everyone in Hinamizawa will stand up against them. It was a manifesto to spur people into action. My grandmother rose up not only as the leader of the Sonozaki house, but as the mother of Hinamizawa. It was halfway through 1955. It was a time when riots over the treaty with the US were rampant, and a time of battle and action. The people of Hinamizawa joined together and fought, treating unfair discrimination towards one as a crime against them all. It didn't matter whether that one was a child or an adult. If they heard that a child had been told off, then everyone would crowd the house of the perpetrator, acting as a whole. If they heard an adult who had been treated unfairly, men and women, young and old, would all band together and stand up against it. If you meddled with people from Hinamizawa, you would be in trouble. They probably figured that if they could make others think that, they'd win. Punchy-chan, do you remember how many people came to help you when you got involved with those delinquents in town? I recall how much of an impression it had left on me. That the people of Hinamizawa boldly came to my rescue, yet the people of Okinomiya averted their eyes so they wouldn't get involved. My grandmother fought, and my parents carried on the fight. At last, peace returned to Hinamizawa. Of course, that peace had been placed on a razor's edge. When you consider the previous 100 years of history, the tranquility now can only be called a chance interval, standing on uneven scales. Why? Could I really have an opinion on such a long and difficult history when I hadn't moved here more than a year ago? Yet, I said it anyway. Why can't everyone just live in peace? What happened to the old stories of Oyashiro-sama that I heard from Takano-san? Man and demon joined hands and lived together in harmony. Didn't Oyashiro-sama remain in this world to watch over that? It's a fairy tale. I mean, that even if those people and the demons were real, and the Oyashiro-sama had mediated between them wasn't. Is that why Oyashiro-sama's curse happens? A cool gust of wind blows in from outside, fluttering Mion's long, beautifully clear hair. It's pretty green to me. Mion kept her refreshing smile without answering, and didn't even change her expression. But even that became a silent answer. So that Hinamizawa might once more be like Onigafuchi village. So that we may again be a sacred existence, worthy of worship. That was the earnest wish of our ancestors in Onigafuchi, and the mission of those who inherit the demon in the Sonozaki main family. Those who inherit the demon. For generations, the Sonozaki family has had a custom of including the character of demon in the leaders' names. If you write out my name in your hand, it should appear as plain as day. I trace out the word Mion on the palm of my hand. Oh, she's right. The character for demon is in there. Not only in my name either. The demon is engraved on my body as well. When she said that, she quietly arose and began to lay her hand on her clothing. It's okay, Mi-chan. You don't need to show us, okay? Thank you. With just that exchange, I guessed what she meant. Most likely, somewhere on her body, there's a permanent seal, such as a tattoo or marking, that proves she inherited the demon. Mion didn't sit back down. She smoothly opened the paper door on the porch. A refreshing breeze began to cleanse the damp air filling the room. Mion quietly gazed out at the wide yard for quite a while. On her shoulders was something I could never imagine the normal Mion carrying. It was the heavy, truly heavy history of Hinamizawa, no, of Onikafuchi, weighing down on them. What kind of words could I possibly say to a Mion like that? Rena wasn't saying anything to her either. Only the voices of the cicadas drowned out the silence. At last, after a long period of nothing, Mion murmured, "The serial incidents happening over the past 5 years? I was directly related to some of them, and indirectly to others. Some were not the Sonozaki family, but were rather related to the others. The Kimiyoshi family and the Furude family. I think I was the center of all of them." She said it without turning around with her back to us. At some point, her tone of voice had gone back to being the Mion we knew. I have faith in what I've done, and don't feel any guilt. If I did, perhaps it would be that I will have to leave the stage before the heir is decided. If I am caught and tried in a court of law, then I suppose that's how it works nowadays. Being able to retire with Hinamizawa at the most peaceful it's been in 100 years could be the happiest thing that's ever happened to any of the Sonozaki leaders of past generations. Mion leaned a shoulder against the paper door, then slid down it and flopped to the ground. It was an act of such resignation that just seeing it made me hurt inside. The numerous terrible crimes Mion had been part of suddenly began to fade from my mind. Hey Mion, I don't care what happens after this. Can you just try to struggle as much as you can? Try to run away? As soon as I began to think that way, Rena's ringing voice filled the room. But Rika-chan and Satoko-chan, you killed them, didn't you, Mi-chan? Oh, jeez, what a mouthful this episode was. Alright, we're cutting off there. So, not the last episode. And even as, like, we're there, Mion's confessed a whole lot. I still feel like we're not as close to the end as I thought we would be. But this is interesting because we went from totally creeped out, and like totally creeped out and really pumped that we were going. It's like it's toned down because the real Mions showed up, or at least the real Mion without the curse warmer showed up. She's told us her whole history, essentially, and she's confessed to it. Oh, well, she's about to. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one, which once again may or may not be the finale, but we'll see. Bye-bye.